How's it going, guys? So my neighbor and I are having a conversation about buying chainsaws and basically, what size chainsaw should he buy? We live in a wooded area, completely surrounded by timber, actually. And so for me personally and for a lot of my neighbors, pretty much every year there's trees to be cut. Either something goes down in the wind or trees die, or you're cutting firewood or whatever. So firewood or chainsaws are pretty prevalent around here. So having this general conversation. So as you can see, I like chainsaws, and so I got 5 of them currently. Not everybody needs 5 chainsaws. So I got to thinking, okay, what's the, if somebody's going to buy one, what's the best size saw? And I thought I'd make a video, kind of give you my opinion, my experience after, quite a few years and countless hours running a chainsaw, kind of what I think. So before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and this saw here currently has a 27-inch bar on it. This is an Echo. As you can see, I'm an Echo fan. 4 Echo saws. And I'll talk about this little home light here guy in a second, but I'm a big fan of Echo products. But anyway, this is a CS 600. It currently has a 27-inch bar, and I'm going to make a change to this. I picked up a 24-inch bar, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute, but I'm going to swap this out, throw this bar on with a new chain, and we'll talk about it. And this bar, I should mention, this saw, I was fortunate, and this is a saw that my dad had that he wasn't using, and he actually gave this to me a while back. So very, very nice of him to do that, very appreciative. But we're going to take this 27 down to a 24 and make this thing a serious cutting machine. There you go, typical Echo. Third pull, probably would have started the second pull actually if I guessed it a little bit, but all right, so let's talk about this. All right, so we got a new bar and chain on the 600, and this thing's sweet. I can't wait to cut with this actually, I'm excited. So here's my logic. This is kind of where I'm at on this. So what I would say, from my experience, and I should say that we've got 5.5 acres of land here, that when I bought this property, it was solid timber. And we've got approximately an acre where the house and my shop sits. And this little CS 440 here, it's 45cc or roughly 45cc Echo, I cleared over an acre with this little saw over the course of a summer, not to mention, using it multiple houses, different houses that I've owned, different flip houses and stuff, helping friends, helping neighbors, stuff like that. This saw has hours and hours and hours of cutting on it. I can't even, I have no idea how many trees I've cut with this thing and how much firewood I've cut with it. So this is it's a CS440. It's an 18-inch bar, and I think if a guy is basically just, if you're not cutting firewood extensively, if you just need a saw around to, clean up basically, or do a little bit of firewood work, maybe take down some small trees, stuff like that. A saw in this size, around 45 cc's with an 18-inch bar, is pretty handy saw to have around. If you get like a 20-inch bar, I think it would be a little bit better. But the thing is, on these kind of medium-sized saws, is you always have to kind of think about your power to weight ratio, basically, or your power to your bar length. So I think it goes without saying, the longer the bar, the longer the chain, the more power it takes to be able to turn that chain. And what sucks is to have a chainsaw that doesn't have enough power. I can tell you that from experience. So you don't want to have too much bar for the saw. I guess that's basically what I'm saying. But an 18-inch saw is very versatile. You can do a lot of stuff with it. It'll get you a long ways. Again, for me, it took me longer than it should have doing all this with this saw, but it got it done, and it'll get done a lot of work. And I've taken, this thing's 18 inches. I've taken trees that are, I suppose, probably at least 2 foot, maybe 28 inches in diameter with this thing. It's not easy. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it can be done if you're persistent. So this is probably the most universal size in my experience. Now, with all that said, if your budget's a little bit bigger and you can afford it, I am a big fan of having a couple saws, as you can see. So after doing a lot of cutting with this thing, I upgraded to the CS680. The 680 is basically a 70cc saw. I'm running 27-inch bar on it, and this thing will cut. I've made, I think I've made some other videos that I've got out there somewhere with this thing cutting. So this thing, if you've got to cut, if you're cutting big trees, especially if you're felling big trees, or if you get a big tree on the ground, if you got something that's, a couple foot in diameter or bigger, 30 inches or whatever it might be, you just can't beat having a big saw. It has a more aggressive chain on it. I think these chains are an LPX, I believe. Yeah, an LPX, which is like a semi-chisel, more aggressive chain. The 18-inch, these are generally come with more kind of a homeowner's chain that's got a little more anti-kickback built into them. The bigger saws have a more aggressive chain. They cut really well. It's got a ton of power. You just can't beat having a lot of power in a saw. If you've got big wood to cut and you think you're going to have a lot of big wood to cut, boy, if you can find yourself a big saw, again, these Echoes are for, price to performance. I don't think you can beat an Echo. Steel, if you get into like the steel professional grade especially, those are great saws. No question about it, but you're going to pay probably double what you're going to pay for these Echoes. Steel's got more kind of homeowner grade saws too, which are no better than an Echo in my opinion. You got a comment? If you think differently, leave me a comment down below. Let me know. What brand do you like to run in chainsaws and other power equipment? I've got leaf blowers and I've got trimmers. I've got Echo everything. So, what do you guys prefer? What's your favorite? So this saw, so I should mention too, so this saw, one nice thing about a little saw like this, I weighed this before I got started. This saw is 14 pounds, so you can cut all day long with this thing and it's not gonna really wear you out. It's not too bad. This one with chain and bar and everything, the 680, is 21 pounds, 21.08 is exactly what it came out to. So What I will say is a 21-pound saw, you know, and I'm not a big guy. I'm 170 pounds and, you know, 175 dripping wet maybe. So, you know, I'm a pretty average sized guy, and hauling around a 21-pound saw all day long it'll wear you out. After a couple hours of cutting, you know, I'm pretty tired, and I know I did some work. So that's the only drawback to a big saw, is they are heavy. It drinks fuel too. Man, this thing will run a long time on a tank of fuel. This one, you know, wide open throttle, it drinks gas like crazy, which is fine. It's a chainsaw, I don't really care, but it's another consideration. This one has an oiler on it too, so if you're really, like, especially some old dry dead wood or whatever, I like to keep that chain nice and oiled, so kind of a nice benefit of that 680. But I've always so I got my 18, I got a 27, and I've always felt like I wish there was something in between, or that I had something in between. This thing is just, after you run a more powerful saw, when you go back to your smaller saw, you always feel like you're kind of wanting for more power, I guess. And I always had an idea of trying to get something more in the middle, kind of that, you know, 24-inch range, but I didn't really want to, you know, I didn't really want to turn this into a, you know, take my 27 off. I thought about getting a smaller bar and chain and just flipping back and forth. But I've got stumps to cut and stuff like that. And so I prefer to keep this as a long saw. So now we fast forward to today. And again, this is the saw that my old man gave me. This is a 600. So the nice thing about this, so I weighed this before, so when this had the 27-inch bar on it, I weighed this, and it was 18.9, so almost 19 pounds. So this saw is 2 pounds lighter than the 680 already. Now I put a 24-inch bar and chain on it, and I just weighed it, and we're at 17.9 pounds. So we're a full 3 pounds lighter with this saw than I am with this 27-inch saw. And 3 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're running a chainsaw, 3 pounds makes a ton of difference. So this 24, oh, that feels so nice. It's nice and light. A 27-inch saw gets really, it's a little bit kind of out of balance, I guess. So that bar hangs out there so far. This thing it balances nicely, and it's so much. The 3 pounds is just going to be great. It's still got 60 cc's, 24-inch bar on a 60 cc saw. I have no doubt this thing is going to cut amazing. Truthfully, I would say that for most of the kind of general work that I do around here, I think this is now going to be my go-to saw, 24-inch. So, you know, I said before that 18 was super handy. If you've got the budget and you can jump up to something a little bit more powerful, a little bigger, I think 24 is really going to be the sweet spot. But you're going to spend a little bit more money, you know, in between those two. Then I'll mention too, and this gets a little bit more specialized. This little dude is a CS 2511T, and this is what they call a tops handle saw, and basically this is a climbing saw. So I do some, I've taken a number of trees down. I've got some areas where just because where they're located either to a building or, you know, a fence, or got one by my septic system, stuff like that. Sometimes you just can't fall a tree. Sometimes you gotta take it down. And if anybody's ever gotten a quote from a tree company to take a tree down, you know how expensive it is. So me being kind of a tightwad like I am, several years ago I invested in climbing gear. So I've got the whole setup with you know, with the stirrups and ropes and the climbing saddle and everything, and so I'll actually climb trees and I'll take them down from the top down occasionally. In fact, I've got probably 2 that I'm going to do this summer. Think about it, I'll make a video. Subscribe to my channel and you can kind of watch out for those videos coming up. But this little guy here is like, I think it weighs 6.5 pounds. I weighed it, I think it was like 7 pounds, and that's with this lanyard, big heavy brass hook and carabiner and all this stuff on here. So this is like a 6-pound saw. This thing is super light for cutting in a tree. Kind of a specialized thing that I know most people don't climb trees to cut. And truthfully, if you're on the ground, this really is not the kind of saw that you want to have. Something that's got a regular rear handle on it is much safer. And these little guys just don't, you know, they're made for cutting branches, not for big stuff. I can get, when I'm trunking a tree down, I mean, yeah, I can cut 10-inch logs off the tree, taking logs off. It's slow and it doesn't have a lot of power, but it's light, and that's the most important thing. That's why I got it. So love it for that. And then last but least, is I got this little Homelite Bandit. It's an LX30. So this saw, I've had this thing for, I don't really know. I've probably had this thing for 20 years, maybe something like that. This is a saw that I had a family member who used to run a small engine shop, and he had this kind of laying in the corner, and I needed a saw, and he gave this to me. This little thing, I used it some, you know, when I lived in town, and I didn't have a lot of use for a chainsaw, and just kind of, you know, some little kind of around the yard, you know, if a little branch would come down, something like that. But what this thing has been relegated to now, and you can maybe tell, is if I take down smallish trees, not something that I want to mess around with having ground or anything, I'll just take this thing, and this is my stump cutter basically. So I hate, if you have any experience with chainsaws, you know that a second you touch the dirt with it, your chain is cooked basically, and you're going to be sharpening that chain. Which is not the end of the world. I mean, some of the tools that they've got now make chain sharpening really efficient and easy, but by the same token, I hate running chains in the dirt. So this little guy, I don't care if the chain goes in the dirt. I'll stick it right in the dirt actually, so I can get them cut off nice and flush. So that's why I keep this thing around. I don't really use it very often, but I did start it the other day, and it started like the 3rd pull and hadn't run it in years, which is pretty amazing. But you know, it's got, I don't know, I think that's a 12-inch bar on it, probably a 12-inch bar. And you know, something that if you ever find an old junker saw at a garage sale or something like that you can pick up cheap, it's kind of nice to have one that you really don't care about. You know, if you need to get down in the dirt, or if you need to cut some bushes out or something like that, just pull it out, cut, throw it back on the shelf, and don't worry about it. So, so anyway, that's kind of my general opinion. And again, I don't have any cutting time on this 24-inch. I just know these saws well enough to know that this size range here, the 600cc, is going to have a ton of power with that 24-inch bar on it. Maybe I'll report back after I do some cutting. But my guess is that probably 90% of the time this is a saw that I'm going to go to now. You know, I'm sure I'll still use this thing some too, just because it's small and light and portable, and you know, cutting little small trees or cutting little limbs and stuff, it does great for that. But that 18 to 24-inch range, if you're thinking about a saw, I think is probably the sweet spot. You know, hopefully this is helpful. I know it's kind of rambling my opinion, and I know, you know, opinions are like armpits. Everybody has a couple, and most of them stink. So just my opinion from a lot of hours on a chainsaw. So really am seriously curious. So you know, Echo's the brand that I've obviously have gone with and have been really happy with it. I'm curious to see what brand chainsaw are you guys partial to, and what like bar do you think works the best for you? Because you know, just because this has been my experience, and I should say too, I'm in Iowa, pretty much all hardwood here. There's no softwood. I don't have a softwood tree on my property basically, so you know, that might make a difference. If you're, you know, an area where they have, you know, evergreens and pines and more softwood, stuff like that, you might have a different opinion, but just my opinion here in central Iowa. So appreciate you guys watching the video. Do me a favor, hit that like button if you found it entertaining. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next video.